Hi, my name is Jeff Gardiner. I'm the project lead for Fallout 76.
Jeff, talk about this journey of what it's been like to work on a games as a service, an MMO essentially. I mean, it's no easy task from launch until now, and all the improvements you've made on it.
That's a great understatement. It's I started my career a long time ago, but I've been at Bethesda. It'll be 15 years actually in October, and since the end of Oblivion, and so I'm a single player RPG player and maker, and so after towards the tail end of Fallout 4, we started, talking about the idea of doing an online multiplayer game, spin-off of Fallout 4, Fallout 76. And so I've been on the project since its literal inception, and it's been quite a learning curve. I had to learn a whole new language. I had to learn how to deal. Plus, we're dealing a lot with. We started the remote game studio thing 3 years ago because most of the folks I work with are in Austin, and I'm in Rockville in the mothership. And so I had to learn. There's a lot of learning curve there, and how to deal with teams and communication through this new media we're all working with. So yeah, we made the decision to do it, and we started spinning it up. And the team in Austin had a lot of experience with Ultima Online, Star Wars Galaxies. There's some really unbelievable people there who had worked on a lot of MMO titles, and they were the obvious ones to do it. Then we had to take a game engine that I think has been around since before cell phones, and I mean cell phones, not smartphones, and add in a networking layer. We used our networking layer. We took some tech from id, an id tech networking layer, and we added it into the game and just started seeing what would break. And I could talk for the whole half hour about stuff that broke and the difficulties we had and the redesigns of the game. We had all sorts of different ideas of what the game would be. We're still sort of trying to figure that out as we were making it. Soup to nuts, we put this game out in 3 years from when we started it to finished it, which is pretty incredible. And my hat's off to that team in Austin for me even being able to pull this off. And then, it launched, and we can talk about that if you want. But I'll give you one example of a difficulty we had when we first built the game. So the entire game engine is assuming it's a single point entity, the player, which we ended up calling Atlas, is what everything in the game loads around. The AI, the rendering, anything you see is based on that single point. And all of a sudden we had to make a game where there's any number of these, right? So that alone was such a massive tech lift for us. Not to mention the fact that we had to make it talk to different computers and all the things you hit when you're doing this stuff. But it's been I love these kind of challenges personally because they level you up. They make you understand things. I understand how these games work now. And now, since it's been a live service in the last 2 years, sorry, I've learned a lot about that too, and how to interact with communities and how to take feedback. And I know we're going to talk about that a little. And I can talk forever about this stuff, so I apologize for leading us some questions.
No, I could tell you from now, I can't think of any games as a service MMO game that's had a good launch, that's had a flawless launch without a huge amount of problems. Because I was talking before the interview that there's so many things that can go wrong. You can do as many open betas as you want, you can do as many family and friends beta, but until you get hundreds of thousands of people on your server, you're gonna find bugs that you never knew existed. You're gonna find issues that certain players will have, and some of those are niche cases, and some of those are, common. But it's unavoidable.
It is. I wish it were avoidable. We have a great QA staff. We tested the game as much internally. We did too short a beta. I think we publicly said that. We should have left it up in beta for a year. I don't know, a long time. And not only to catch bugs, but to get player feedback on the game. There's aspects of these games that require hundreds and hundreds of, a linear test of hundreds of hours. So you can't even really organically get that. In terms of how does the game feel and the balance, and am I seeing too many of the same creatures? And there's so many of these not just obvious bugs, and thankfully we had our sister company here, ZeniMax Online, had gone through a difficult launch. And so I talked to Matt Fryer and Rich Lampert, and we went through a lot of these issues and talked and see how to do it. And then, they always say yep, we made that mistake. Yep, mistake. Yep, we made that mistake. And you see where that game is today, and it's doing so well, and the fans love it. And I think, in the last year, we've really done very similar service to the fans of Fallout and Fallout 76 in particular.
Can you talk about some of the challenges? Because obviously you're have to maintain not only the game, but then every so often you have to add new content for players to experience. So it's almost like you're juggling two full-time projects at once, and as well as a new project every month or so.
That is exactly correct. So we have a large portion of our staff dedicated to the live team, just dealing with issues that crop in live, exploits, hacking, the bugs that we didn't catch, bugs we did catch that didn't think would be as severe. I mean, all these things are true, and all these things are aspects of this game. So we have that team. Then we have multiple content teams that are delivering not only what the next patch is, but also you can't just finish a patch and start a new patch. You end up this treadmill, so you have to layer that in. So you have multiple patches. We have totally different branches in development. So every day I'm downloading different builds to try different things and see where certain content is, what things we need to adjust, and there's different criteria for every stage of this. And so it again, like another learning curve is this the branch development, multiple different iterations of the game. Like, oh yeah, I forgot this feature isn't even in this branch, right, that I'm playing right now. It's not until a downstream branch. Like One Wasteland was an example of that. So you don't, but again, like it presents a fascinating rubric, like a challenge that you just sort of, if you any life difficulty you can look at and go, this is overwhelming, I can't handle it. But then if you just breathe and sort of walk through steps and you trust the process and you go through it, you can get to the other side of it. And the other side of it's been amazing. Like we're able to, I've never been in a game where we put something out, we know immediately how it went, and then we can tweak it, right? Like we had patched previous games, but not at this cadence. We are shipping really, 8 times a year right now. We have the major content beats 4 and then the interim patches. So we have 8 of these a year, and it's amazing to be able to respond to criticisms in the game and fix them, right? And that's something we never really had in the past. In the past, we'd put these DLC out, and we'd sort of like put our finger up in the air and go, what are people going to want? And then we try new things. And the first couple were always, I did 17 of the DLC, like as a lead producer. So I'm very used to like putting those things out and seeing what people respond to. And it's funny to see, like, you think fans are going to want something new and different. Sometimes they just want more of the same. And I don't mean that in a bad way. They just want more dungeons, more quests, more loot, because that's the grind or the thing they're used to doing. But we try to sprinkle it in. I think the last patch 22, introduced we try to sprinkle in new features to keep the game interesting, because that's what keeps me interested as a player. I look at these games like how I am a consumer of them. So I like games that tell interesting stories and keep me hooked that way, and also change the gameplay. I like tweaks and trying things out and experimenting with new toys, basically learning curves. So it's fun.
One of the things that you're doing, your quality of life patch that you've implementing, is you're kind of getting rid of like the levels areas. So now basically the world will now adjust to your level so you can experience any of the content. I feel like that's where the future of MMOs, there's not going to be levels anymore. It's just going to be like you can go wherever you want and do whatever you want and get experiences, bulk skill points. And I think that's great. There's no bar of entry. There's no more zoning from level 1 to 10 and then going 10 to 30 and then 30 to 40. You can literally go to that, what used to be level 50 area, as a level 1 and still experience the stories and the content it has to offer.
It allows for players to, I think once you do the hard leveling system, especially leveling systems in traditional MMOs, where every 10 levels it's like a 10x in power, so there's like this massive disparity in power and gaps. I think that really boxes you in terms of, 1, the player's never able to revisit content, and 2, heaven forbid, my wife plays the game 10 hours a week more than me and I can never keep up. And over time, there's been a lot of different solutions to that. Guild Wars had a very interesting one. Art Tezo has an interesting one. And the one we did is we're trying to find a way, so you don't want to also lose the feeling that some things are too hard for you and you want to level up to be able to accomplish this challenge, or that I now don't have to, every mole rat in the game isn't murdering me, right? So you want to be able to, there's a fine line there in the system that our design team came up with is I think really unique there. So you still, like, we are still, honestly, we had it in PTS for a few months. We still have some learnings from we're already fixing. So, but the system there is that it live levels the creature to the players that are engaging it. So very different level characters are affecting the creature differently, but that's sort of transparent and visible to the other players. And it also allows for this, we still have that like soft banding where creatures that cap out at level 20 will never get stronger, but creatures at min level, like a Scorched Beast Queen, is never going to go into level 5, right? So you have these things where there are difficult encounters that you work up towards, but also things that you now don't, that are like fluff to you. So we're going to keep tweaking it and tuning it as we go. Like you said, like even our PTS server gives us great feedback on this, but it's still a tiny fraction of the overall audience. So we take both our personal experiences with the game and the data we collect, and we make decisions based on what we need to tweak.
I feel it's such an incredible journey to see the start of something like this, where like Warcraft had and EverQuest had instances you'd have to walk into and load, and then it would put you in a own little world. Now your instance is yourself, and you can walk around the world in real time in your own instance. And then if more people come around you, they get scaled down, or it adjusts to their level as well. It's absolutely insane. How far we've come.
Yeah, the unique thing here, like I mentioned Guild Wars because Guild Wars 1 and 2 were some of my favorite MMOs. So they did a thing where they basically banded you down or up to the level zone, and then based on how the relative, somebody in that team is probably going crazy at my my interpretation of what they did, but they banded you up or down based on, so if you were a very high level into low level zone, you'd be like a highest level you could be in that zone. And so you still hit, it's a very neat system. We're actually just taking the creatures and doing that. So we sort of flipped it. And Tezo did something different too, where they went in more deeply and changed the way the leveling system works on an individual basis. So we actually met with the Tezo team, the designers and their designers got together, and it's great when you're able to cross-pollinate across games and studios like that. And to take different people's ideas and learnings and go, hey, what would you have done if you could redo this, and things like that. So that team's always been very helpful to us. And yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Like I said, we're going to keep tweaking it. We're already going to tweak. There were some reports back, some of the mid-level ranges we didn't get quite right, and we're fixing that right now. And I hope we communicated it out. But yes, we're fixing that right now. Hopefully, hotfix that soon. So we're going to keep working on it as we go along. And then the patch in the winter, the last patch this year with Brotherhood of Steel, we're going to change the way our survival system works. So we're going to make it more of we're actually taking learnings from WoW there. Like you don't get penalized when you're really hungry or really thirsty. You get the buffs that you otherwise would have go to nothing. So it's like a reverse. You're incentivized with a carrot instead of a stick. So players who don't want to participate in the system don't feel like, oh my God, if I don't drink, I'm going to get these warning messages, and I can't. My AP never goes over half. We're going to reverse it a little. To make it more of a reward system. We're going to keep tweaking things like that as we go forward. We keep looking at different vectors in the game we can change and try different stuff.
Like you said, back in the day for MMOs, you only had to worry about a PC build consistently. How do you get this PC build to work flawlessly? Now you have to worry about PS4 and Xbox, as well as 3 different platforms that you're shipping your MMO on. What are some of the challenges involved in that?
That immediately is a denominator in testing, right? So the number of platforms you have, you're dividing what if you have 100 testers, then you have 33 on each platform, right? So there's some cross things there that are similar to gameplay in certain aspects, but there's often very unique issues that crop up on the different platforms for certain. So we are very cognizant. So we get asked all the time to try different platforms or do different things, and the testing requirements are difficult. Also, obviously, there's certification things with Sony and Microsoft, which you have to go through. So you have to bake in time into your schedules to make sure you have enough time to pass cert, and if you don't, you got to re-certify. So the number one thing there is there's these weird edge case bugs that happen with the different architectures, technically, that often happen to us, and then also to being able to find those through testing, because we have to divide the number of platforms. Is it just a straight denominator, like in terms of testing? So.
I know you probably can't say much, but what are the next gen consoles opening up for your team on a visual level for Fallout 76?
We are not actively pursuing that right now. I will say that has come up a ton, both from our fans and internally, is something that we should be pursuing or we should be looking into. So I am as 76 grows in popularity, I'm certain that at some point we will be adding, minimally, hopefully visual things, and the frame rate alone should be a lot better. Those consoles are massive. Not that you can get them. I tried.
If you can, yeah.
We don't need to talk about that.
So can you talk about some of the quality of life changes you're making to the game? Obviously, we talked about the one Wasteland already, but you also have daily ops, armor race, and legendary perks, as well as how you acquire perks is actually speeding up as well.
Yeah, so we, obviously the last challenge patch we added perk packs in, and now you can buy them in our gold bullion shop. So we're trying to increase the the rewards for high level players who are in those systems. So any of these things we introduce in Challenge Pass will eventually, well, many, if not all of them, will at some point come to the Gold Bullion shop. Armor races are, it's funny, I hopped on a server before this and I was like, where's everyone on the map? They must have been in the daily ops. I mean, there was 2 other people on the map. It showed me 24 people in the server. I was like, they must all be in daily ops, which is great. I'm glad people are enjoying it. So we are looking for ways. One of the things we try to do is make systemic content and to make content that is not one and done. So Wasteland was a lot of our one and done content. Brotherhood of Steel will be that too. It's a quest line. You only really do it once, or maybe you load in a different character and try a different arc. But we try to mix in systemic content. And team, Steve Massey, the lead level designer, he had this idea and we ran with it with this daily ops. So we're going to be able to add in, you basically go into the dungeon and the dungeon's random, the enemies are randomized and the mutators randomized, mutators being the different things that affect it, that change the gameplay experience. And we're going to add more of those as time goes on. So there'll be more and more variety in those more, and we're also going to continue to revisit spaces. Part of it is we're going back to existing spaces or taking some of the vaults we retired and bringing them back. And so you'll be able to constantly cycle in and out of these. Are easy to get into. It's a pretty much an encapsulated gameplay experience. We find people in our game spend a lot of time, but we do want to allow people to go, you can log in, play for a half hour, get your fill and bounce. It's fine too. So that's what those are for, and they've been extremely popular. Legendary Perks was an idea we've had for a long time. We've talked about it for a long time. It's finally out. Thrilled with it. And it's basically, once we found people getting such high level, and that, like I said, for me, I like to be able to unlock new toys to play with. This was a way for us to give them new toys to play with. So it's funny, the data we got back, the ammo, I forget now I'm spanking on it, but the ones that are the most popular are the ones that obviously let you swap in and out ammo, and then Master Infiltrator, which gets rid of our hacking and lockpicking system. But people will be able to swap those in and out as they go, and then rank them up. And then you start a new character. You actually it's like a new game plus sort of system we're going to build on going forward. And then obviously one Wasteland. So this last patch, and then Armor Ace, the Challenge Pass. Like there's so much to talk about in this game. And it's funny, we're talking 2021 now, and someone I'll get the hook and be pulled off screen if I talked about that. I'd love to, but the next year's gonna be even crazier. I mean, we're adding more and more and more content, gameplay systems, balance tweaks. The whole year is scheduled out for 2021. So, and we can't wait to reveal that. And obviously we have another huge patch for Brotherhood of Steel coming in later this year too. So it's just, the train's rolling.
I mean, as someone who worked on Oblivion, can you talk about like how you develop content, like the process for specifically Fallout 76 of like saying, hey, would this be fun to do, to actually implement into the game? Like, how do you decide what content you're going to do, what the theme's going to be, what the rewards will be? Like, how does that process work from just throwing ideas in the conference room to actually putting it into the game?
So a lot of what we do comes organically as we're playing the game. Again, as fans of our own games, we see needs, right? We don't like things, we want to change them. Not everybody agrees, obviously. So what you do is you come up with a laundry list. These laundry lists of ideas are huge, right? So then we start vetting them internally, and we look at them for 2 different ways. We're like, and we evaluate them by risk and how hard they are to do, okay? So some things seem easy to do but are super risky, meaning they'll change huge tech pathways. This morning I was talking to the systems designer about different ways the AI aggression could work, and then my head started exploding with how many things this could possibly break and how hard of a lift this is, for instance. So every day there's new ideas. We encourage everyone on the team. We have a lot of feedback channels and Slack and email and stuff where people can organically come up with ideas. Eventually we get to a vetting process. We have to decide, here's how much time we have, how many bodies we have, what can we get done? And then that process becomes a prioritization process based again on, the risk and how cool it's going to be, what the end result's going to be, we use the term juice squeeze ratio all the time. This is something that's going to take us months and not change the game much. This is something we can do in a single patch with one designer, and it's going to change everything. Those are the ideas that we try to get up to the top. Then we vet them and we run them by Todd Howard. I'll be honest with you, we did this just the other day. So we present to Todd and he gives us his own opinions, and he's involved in this process in an organic way. throughout the whole thing, but then there's a formal vetting process there. We get the green light and we start building. And sometimes, we say we're going to do something, and then as stuff stacks out, like we're still working on our perk loadout system so people can swap their cards in and out and have like loadouts they can choose from. I think I can talk about that because we've talked about it a lot. It is still coming next year, and it just kept getting pushed down as other needs of the game either organically came up or things just were more difficult than we thought. So sometimes you open up a can of worms and you're like, I don't know how long this is going to take, but you still want it and you keep working on it. So basically, it's a process. It's an organic process that comes to a vinyl vetting procedure. But it's that's the one thing I love about Bethesda is that we just sort of go, what do we want to do? And we try to experiment, and we look at data, and obviously I need to say this clearly though, 50% or more of this comes from us reading Reddit, Twitter, YouTube comments, whatever, and trying to get ideas from fans. So most of the time, ironically, what the fans want is what we also want. Sometimes there's a disconnect there because of either production realities or whatever, but generally, we definitely look at that, especially for small tweaks in between patches also, but the larger tweaks too. So for instance, we love our builders and we're trying to focus on that next year, right? We really want to focus on building and giving people tools and pathways to build more. That's starting in shelters the end of this year, which is our instance system. We're putting basically, you're going to be able to put a door in your camp and go inside and build. And we're upping the budgets on those. We're removing a lot of the rules so people can intersect and make all sorts of crazy stuff. But we have other ideas coming next year too, and we're going to keep building on that system. That's something fans have just requested over and over and over again. We agree. Now the game is finally stable and in a place where we can actually just build. We don't have to do all like that. The first year was just all of us sort of like, putting our fingers in the dike and trying to figure out how to stop the water from coming through, right? But now it's been, since we've stabilized the game, we can now just start building, which is great.
So as far as like going back to the One Wasteland update that you're doing, since it affects creatures only, how does that affect PvP specifically if you're making any major changes to that? For that player you're always going to have those, which players I'm talking about, those players who want to walk around and kill everybody. It's unavoidable. So how does that system affect those types of players?
Oh, it really doesn't, because it won't scale those players. So no, that system is separate. We are actually looking at feeding that system a little bit next year too. Way down the line, we're looking at ways to get, because we did have the survival mode a while ago, and we realized there's still a player base that likes that kind of thing. But no, the actual PvP systems, which you'd be surprised how few people actually engage in that, but it is there, and the people who want to know, it's basically the same. We did change some of the internal balance in these systems, not just the meta balance. So some builds and stuff are different now, which I know some people like, some people don't. But basically, the PvP system still operates like it did.
And then one of the questions that comes up probably all the time in both your community and your conference room is obviously cross save, and that's actually one of the questions I want to ask. Have you guys talked about either cross-play with Xbox, PS4, and PC, and if that's off the table, cross-progression between the platforms? Is that an option as well?
As somebody who I got remarried and have a lot of kids, so we have a lot of game players in this house, and I don't want to buy 7 of any one thing. I don't mind having a few of everything, but 7 Xboxes is a bridge. Trust me, I at one point had 5 kids in my house. So no, I get that. I get that greatly. And we talk about it all the time. It is not on our roadmap right now. It's one of those things that it's hard to describe to players how it's not just like we flip a switch and allow us to do this. This is on us. We'd have to do a ton of those silos. We call them silos, those back-end platforms you talk about. Getting those connected and talking to each other is, the problem with it is, frankly, is it require a ton of work, and it would basically mean we're not doing other things in the game. So right now it's trust me, it's on the list, but it is a lower priority for us. But it is something personally I love, but I can't stop putting fun things in the game. I'd rather do that right now.
How do you manage a project? I mean, MMOs are probably arguably the biggest games to manage because they're open worlds, hundreds of players in real time experiencing these worlds. How do you manage everything that's happening? I mean, as a project lead, how do you, I can't even wrap my head around how many probably sub teams you have to manage or make sure that they're on their milestones, if even their benchmarks and stuff.
A lot of what I do is It's, you know, there's different management for different departments. It's you know, you got to trust the people that you put empowered to make decisions, right? And when they make wrong decisions, and everyone does, I do all the time, you course correct and learn, right? And so that's all it is. Like, so you're like, what did we learn? How can we move forward? So we do retrospectives on patches. We do now we're doing retrospectives on our marketing material. Like we look back and go, what could we have done better? What should we try differently? You know, this game is a super unique beast because like everyone talks about it like it's an MMO, but it's very, very different than like the traditional MMOs. It's smaller servers, it's first person gameplay. There's tons of difference in there's so many. We still have all the crazy AI and wild subsystems that sort of combine in weird ways we don't know until we go live. You know, you just sort of you learn to trust the process. And it's funny because right before this I was dealing, like, every day there's a new crisis. Every day there's something wrong. We had something last night I don't want to get into, but every day there's some. And a lot of what we do, remember, we rely on Amazon Web Services for our service. Those sometimes don't work. If that's on Amazon, what am I going to do? Call Jeff Bezos up and, you know, like, get your shit together. So like there is like, so there's things that are totally out of our control. We have that even internally with other systems. Like, you know, there's just so many different subsystems, and we just have to do is trust that. Again, the people you've hired to do that, it's about communication and trust, like anything else. And eventually you grow into that role. I had to learn it, and you eventually start to just grow into this role and go, you know, this, you know, there are issues, they're going to solve them. And most of the time people do. You know, and then when you don't, that's when you have to step in personally. But I don't know, this team I'm working with right now is so amazing. And, you know, we're coming on working together for, I think, 5 years, and this game's been out for, it's going to hit its second year. And it's been amazing to work and to grow as a lead and to watch them grow as developers. It's been a real honor being on this game. It really has.
I think it's incredibly difficult and to work with sometimes with people who don't understand the nuances of game development, especially for an online live service multiplayer game that's not like an arena shooter. Like, for example, like when the game came out, I remember seeing this infamous sentence, and I'm sure you've seen it. All they had to do was make Fallout 4 multiplayer, right? Like that was the sentence that was thrown around. But I can't even stress like how. I mean, can you talk about that? Like, talk to that a little bit, like, because it's not as easy as just making Fallout 4 multiplayer.
No, but it's taught me a lot about my own responses to things in life, and also, like, at the same time, it's a fair statement. Like, I'm never one that goes like a lot of the marketeers are like, we're working hard on this. Like, I was like, not like, just listen, like, don't say that. Like, yes, we're gonna do this. Like, at the end of the day, it's a great privilege to be able to do what I've done. Like, right, it really is. And I try to remind myself I'm grateful, and try to remind myself this is a great privilege I've been given. And when somebody on the receiving end of something, they only know what they know, and I can't. For me to get upset over that is absurd. Like, they just want it to work. They just want it to, you know, they played a ton of Fallout games and our games for years, and they want what they want, and I absolutely respect that. And so, you know, there's a point where you start getting frustrated with that, but at the same time, like I said, I can't blame them. I feel that, like, when I'm on the plane, when I'm playing a game that doesn't work, I get mad and I make them. I'm like, how is this not working? I'm so mad right now. And listen, they go out and vent online, and then, you know, what you got to do is you make them right by them. You do what you can to do right by them, by people, and eventually they came back. They came back to Fallout 7. They gave us a second chance. And had we just gone, yeah, they don't understand, you know, how hard my life is. Like, that's, I don't know, that comes off so bad to me. Like, I see people doing that. Like, that's never, like, no, like, we need to do right by them. And when we don't, we need to admit it. And when we do, we can talk about it. Both are fine. And that's why we're talking about it now. Like, I'm very happy with how the game's progressed this year. I think it's great. And you know, we're trying to learn. And like I said, like, at the end of the day, when a fan says that, like, I get it. Trust me, because I'm doing it. But at the same time, like, I also get what they're saying. Like, they just want it to work. And it's great that they do. We had a rough year when we launched, and I'd get news feeds every day. So I'd look at them and I'd be like, at least they're still talking about this, right? Like, at least they're so passionate about what we do. And they, in a weird way, I look at it like they want us to succeed, even though they're coming at us from 1,000 different angles. And some of it is, you know, not quite correct. But at the same time, like, at least they're talking about us, and at least they the only reason they would put this much passion and energy into something like this, even if it's negative, is if they really wanted it to be successful. They want a game that they want to play, right? I think that's, to me, the best way to look at this stuff. Otherwise, you go mad. So I hope that long-winded response, but makes sense.
And then the last question I have is, how have the stay-at-home orders affected your team's development, if at all? Because I know some teams haven't been affected that badly at all by it.
Like I said, most of what I do personally is work remotely, so it hasn't really saved my commute, and I get to turn around on lunch and paint Warhammer miniatures. Awesome. But there has been some, right? It's an individual basis, and some of the individuals, like people who are living alone this long, I can't even imagine. People who like have other health issues and stuff, like there's definitely been some, right? We had a couple slips in early summer as a result, partially because of it. There's communication gaps, there's other things. It's hard to like inspire people when you're talking over cameras, and there's this weird gap and microsecond gap in communication and stuff, and eye-to-eye contact you miss. But for us, it's been okay. There's been some productivity loss for sure. You know, there's distractions at home. People still, a lot of our folks have families and their kids are at home and they have to manage that. And there's definitely some for sure. And despite that, I think we personally have done great this year because we put out a lot of content. So, you know, we're lucky being in game development because so much of it is tech and online, and we can manage it. So a little, but not terrifyingly bad.
You mean you don't have the server right next to you right now in your house that you can just like, you know, reset if people are having a hard time?
I kick it. I just like the old TV is like, why isn't this working? Now, yeah, like I said, most of it's remote, and we had learned, like, because it is a 24-hour live service, that's the first thing you have to learn. It's like, yeah, the game doesn't sleep. So we have a lot of these in place, pager systems and all this stuff, like virtual pagers, not actual 1990s pagers. You know, we have all these things in place, so it's been okay. Like I said, there's been some productivity loss that you would expect from this, but we've done okay. We've done all right.
And then lastly, when can people experience the One Wasteland daily ops and all the other nice stuff you're adding to the game in live off the PST?
No, it's out. We put it out Tuesday.
Oh, that's
out
right.
right now.
September. Yeah, that's
so right now. And the next patch,
now.
the next major patch is, we are still contemplating the release date. There's a lot of stuff coming out this fall. We're all excited to play. So we're contemplating the release date. It's definitely coming. You know, before the new year, and it's Brotherhood of Steel and Shelters. Brotherhood of Steel is our new content drop, which is going to be awesome. Everyone loves that faction. It's always exciting to have new quests and allies and things to do in the game, random encounters, a lot of new weapons and armor. We're super stoked on it. It's a little smaller. We're spreading it out over the next several months, so it's not like this massive thing like like Wasteland was, Wastelanders. But also Shelters, which I mentioned earlier, which is our instance-based building system, which I think is going to be great. It's so much fun, and that's one of the common comments is we just want to be able to do more, and so now you will.
And then the very last thing, and I'll let you go because
Sure.
we're short on time, is
great.
Any plans for Spooky Halloween coming up? I know that's a big holiday for everyone in the world. Everyone really likes that.
There are. I'm probably not willing to talk about specifics. We had some things with some of the events, but we're gonna put an event up, and we're gonna put up some stuff for people. Like, there's so much Halloween stuff in our game, and remember, like October, right, the bombs dropped right before Halloween in the lore, so it's a big holiday for us too. And we're still looking at Christmas too, to do something special for that. And we have a community calendar we update constantly with different, you know, double XP weekends and all the other things, double score weekends. So keep an eye on that when you wanna jump back in and take advantage of it. Remember, all this stuff is free. I'm gonna keep saying it, like, all of what we're doing here is free, so it's great. So if you own the game, please come back, try it out.
Awesome, guys, and the game is on every platform, just about every platform. It's on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. Not on Nintendo Switch, which is completely understandable. I don't know how you get that game to run a Nintendo Switch, but I mean, I don't know. But it's on almost every platform, so check it out. It's available now. The One Wasteland is a great way to experience your adventure without having to be riddled by, oh, you're too low level to go here. Don't go here yet. It's a great thing. Check them out. Fallout76.com, I think, is the website, you know. And, like, you know, of course, they have their Reddit, their Twitter, and they do, like Jeff said, they do read it. So get out there and give them some feedback. Positive feedback would be great, or constructive feedback would be great. Constructive's good. And thank you for your time, Jeff. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, Greg. I really appreciate it. It was great.